Hello, I'm Michael Daventry. I'm the foreign editor of the Jewish News, and I'm joined now by Nathan from Israel. I'm going to react live to the exit polls from all the broadcasters that have just come out. Nathan, hello. You've seen the numbers from all three channels. What was your response?
Well, yes, we've been covering a lot of these Israeli elections recently, and each time we get the poll results, and they are modified as the evening goes on, but it does seem that if they stay pretty similar, it does indicate that Benjamin Netanyahu has a very good chance of building a government again. If we put this into some perspective, it means that after a year of pandemic, when Israel has been pretty hard, after months of anti-Bibi protests, still he goes to the polls, comes back seemingly with the largest party and a pretty good chance of being able to build a government.
Interesting. Can you explain to people who don't necessarily follow Israeli politics as closely as you do why it is that the exit polls show the anti-Netanyahu bloc as having 59, which would suggest that they're closer, would it not, to the 61, whereas Netanyahu's bloc is much lower than that? Why is it that the view is that Netanyahu is closer to forming a government than the anti-Netanyahu bloc?
Sure, so the Israeli system is massively complicated. Unlike in Britain, where there's a first past the post system, the largest party gets the government pretty quickly. Here it's all about making deals between the different parties. And you often get a false sense if you look at the blocks of what's going on, because people forget that traditionally the Arab parties do not enter into a government. So while they're relevant in understanding what's going on in parliament, they're not actually relevant in who's going to build a government. It's theoretically possible the Arab parties would join a government. It does not seem very likely at the moment. So really it's about who has the most realistic chance of building that government without the Arab parties. And if we look at it, it seems that Benjamin Netanyahu has that best chance, because if he manages to weave together the different right-wing parties, it looks at the moment like he's very, very close to that magic number of 61, which is the Knesset majority.
And what about Yamina and Naftali Bennett, who seems to have emerged as the kingmaker in all this? He's made noises about joining Netanyahu and he's made noises about not joining Netanyahu. Is your view then that he's more likely to go and rejoin his old political master, shall we say?
Well, indeed, actually, quite literally his political master, because let's not forget that Naftali Bennett actually used to work for Benjamin Netanyahu many years ago. And it seems that a rift, it's said that a rift between him and Netanyahu's wife actually made the division there. But I think the important thing to remember is that Naftali Bennett very much wants to assert his centrality to all of this. But the bottom line is going to be, would he actually push Israel towards further elections? Now, Naftali Bennett is a man who really, really, really wants to be seen as a realistic future leader of Israel, a future prime minister. And I think it would do a lot of harm for his political capital if he was actually seen as saying, no, I won't join Bibi, and end up pushing Israel to another election. So I think that would be a very difficult step for him to take.
And last question, that I noticed from these exit poll results, there was a lot of talk about the electoral threshold and the number of small parties that may or may not actually cross the that boundary. Blue and white was considered to be in danger, possibly Labour and almost certainly Merits as well. But I mean, these exit polls suggest that they haven't just crossed the thresholds; they've comfortably crossed it, and we're looking at about 6 to 7, maybe 8 seats in some cases. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, indeed. I think people were surprised by the strength of Labour merit not getting caught beneath those thresholds. There is a certain logic to it, in that I think a lot of people who, from the left, who tactically voted last time for blue and white, they said to themselves, people who traditionally vote Labour or Merit said to themselves last time, you know what, if we vote blue and white, maybe we'll be able to not have a Bibi government. That didn't work out. So I think what we've seen is those people going back to their natural homes of those left-wing parties, which is why they fared reasonably well.
Very, very interesting. And the night is still young. And as you say, those exit polls
Indeed.
could change as the night progresses and probably will change. The broadcasters do tend to amend the results. So we'll be carrying on following it for the Jewish news. Nathan, thank you very much for joining us from Israel.
Great talking to you.